crucial aspects of life. So the immortal bound to Earth's mortality. So there's no way that the avatar or the vibhuti can get away from Earth's mortality because they have taken birth in a body. And having taken that birth in the body, they are bound to mortality, even though they are immortal. And Sri Aurobindo discusses this at great length in Book 1, Canto 3, when he says that Ashrapati could feel the beating heart in other lives. He could even influence others with his power. And so now we are seeing here in this Book 6 that the immortal is bound to Earth's mortality. He appearing and perishing on the roads of time. Beautiful line, huh? Because the avatar really only comes when it's absolutely possible for a leap in the evolution. He doesn't come otherwise. He's not a garden variety God who's always coming to us. Creates God's moment by eternity's beats. So he creates these moments. Now, right now, the moment is the supermind. Creates God's moment by eternity's beats. So these movements in eternity, these what shall I say, these vibrations in eternity. God creates those moments, and then he dies that the world may be newborn and live. And because death has not been conquered as yet, the avatar also has to die. But we know that death is not real. Death is just a changing of form. Have I sent you the whole thing Sri Aurobindo has written on death? It's quite a few pages, so you understand it now, and you understand it in your life, your family,
Yes.
and what everyone has to go through. So you want to read next?
Yes. Even if he escapes the fiercest fire, even if the world breaks not in a drowning sea, only by hard sacrifice is high heaven earned. He must face the fight, the pang who would conquer hell.
And of course, this is very difficult for us to understand, obviously, because because the world cannot understand that God can be and is whatever he wants to be. If he wants to be evil, he can be evil. If he wants to be weak, he can be weak. But that's only at this stage of our consciousness, body, life, and mind. The moment we can get into that next area of higher mind, illumined, intuitive mind, we'll see that all of this is, as Buddha would say, an illusion. But what Ranganath tells us is that when we get into the overmind and finally into the supermind, we see again that it's real, but in a different way. It's a unity that seems to be a duality, but it's united there. This is extraordinary. We have a long way to go to get there, but we have to get there, and we will get there. Okay. Even if he escapes the fiercest fires, of course, those are the intolerant falsehoods, the divisions, the wars. Even if the world breaks not in, a drowning sea. So he still has to go through this. Even if the world doesn't even break in, he has to go through it because he's the avatar, and he has to take that plunge into unconsciousness, into ignorance, into, I would almost say, the inconscient. Because only by hard sacrifice is high heaven earned. He must face the fight, the pang, who would conquer hell. Now, hell, of course, is not the hell that we know. And Sri Aurobindo tells us in the Letters on Yoga. What is meant by hell is a painful passage through the vital or lingering there, as for instance in many cases of suicide, where one remains surrounded by the forces of suffering and turmoil created by this unnatural and violent exit. And you probably have read what Mother said about suicide. She says that it'll be much worse when the person takes the next birth, because he will have to suffer it twice fold. So anyone who commits suicide is bound to suffer much more in the next birth for taking that grace that has been given through human birth. So
What
he
is
says,
the pang here? What is the meaning of the pang who would conquer hell? Is it like a pang, as in like a pang of hunger, pang of pain?
yes, it's a pang, it's a shot
Okay.
thrust. Now, who would conquer hell? Well, Sri Aurobindo said if the Nazis had won, it would set evolution back thousands of years. That's what he had to fight, and Mother had to fight, to conquer that hell in this time, 1940s to 1945. Well, actually, late 30s. They had to go in there, they had to defeat Hitler, they had to, Mother even had to send Hitler into Russia because that's the way he would be destroyed. And yet, I think millions of people were killed in Russia, millions of good people. But it was the only way. And Sri Aurobindo working on Churchill, both of them working together, even though many in the ashram didn't like it at all. How can you side with England, who has dominated us for 200 years? Sri Aurobindo said, you don't understand. See, this is all practice. This is all practice.
How can you question Sri Aurobindo is my question.
Exactly. And yet they did all the time. Narad Baran constantly. Amal constantly. Amal more in Savitri and poetics. And Narad Baran, who was his scribe in Savitri. And to some, he really didn't accept Mother very much. But, you know, there are pages and pages and pages where Narad Baran is saying, why do you have to suffer? You're the divine. You're the avatar. You don't have to go what we have to go through. And Sri Aurobindo says, I have had to suffer 10 times more than you. So here he must face the fight, and he did, the pang who would conquer hell. And so we'll carry on now.
A dark, concealed hostility is lodged in the human depth, in the hidden heart of time, that claims the right to change and mar God's work.
This is heavy stuff, huh? Very heavy stuff. Where is this dark, concealed hostility in us That's what we have to find out. And we have to root it out. If we have hate, if we have anger, if we have uncontrolled lust, if we have greed, if we have desire for power, all these things are dark, concealed hostilities that are lodged within us in the human depths, in the hidden heart of time. And having them within us, we claim the right to change and mar God's work. And this is why mothers work so much with the children. I mean, look at all the books of her talks to children, her answers to questions that only the mother could answer, or Sri Aurobindo. So, a dark, concealed hostility is lodged in the human depths, in the hidden heart of time. Look at the alliteration, human, hidden, heart. See, we have to also very much feel the beauty of the poetry. And yes, that's its vibration of mantra. And if we can begin to feel that claims the right to change and mar God's work. Every word he's used. You know, A.E. corresponded with Sri Aurobindo. And A.E. is one of my favorite poets, George Russell. If you look him up, you'll see the most beautiful poetry. Sri Aurobindo says A.E. Was the greater person, but Yeats was the greater poet. And A.E. and Yeats were both Irish. So you can look up A.E. Collected poems, and you'll find so many. It will change a lot of your life when you begin reading A.E. Anyway, he writes to Sri Aurobindo, and he says, he complains, he criticizes, he said, you're using too many superlatives, too many of these, A.E.
Yes. So he wrote to Sri Aurobindo.
He wrote to Sri Aurobindo and says, you're using too many superlatives, illimitable, all of these great words. And Sri Aurobindo says, I only write what I have seen or felt. What else can I do? What's his answer? He loved A.E.'s poetry also, but he said, of course, Yeats was the greater poet. A.E. the greater man. I tell you just a little bit about A.E. because it's important. He was a mystic, and he had the occult vision. And he would walk in the evenings down these paths with his wife, and he would tell her, this fairy is taking care of this plant, and this fairy is doing that. And he just had that vision. She didn't see it, but she just loved him telling her about all these different beings who are caring for plants and flowers. So, okay, we'll continue on a little bit. We have only a few minutes, so read a little bit more, and because there's quite a few lines here. A secret
enmity ambushes the world's mark. It leaves a mark on thought and speech and act. It stamps stain and defect on all things done. Till it is plain, peace is forbidden on earth.
Wow. Okay, what is an enmity? It's an ill will or hatred.
Yes.
But it's secret. It's secret. And we know the story of Mother sending down those emanations and how they turned to the opposite of what they were. And she had to send new emanations down again. So actually, this is what he's talking about here. This secret enmity that ambushes. Ambush, very, very interesting word. When you ambush someone, you take them by surprise completely. Ambush is the world's march, the evolution, the progress of the world. It leaves a mark on thought and speech and act. This enmity leaves its mark, and it even stamps stain and defect on all things done. Now, he has a semicolon there because he wants us to know that until it is slain, peace is forbidden on earth. Ranga said he couldn't understand a word in our Savitri class where Sri Aurobindo, he stood on a threshold, serpent watched. He said, I can't understand that one. And I said, well, do you remember when Mother came before that huge serpent and she wanted to go down into that place? And he said, no, you can't go until you have demolished all sex on the earth. Or lust, we should say, the true sense of it. And Mother couldn't go down there. So you see that till this enmity, this being of that is also in us, because we're humans. So to an extent, it's also now, until that is slain, there cannot be any peace on the earth. Wow. I think, yeah, you can do a few more lines and then I'll ask you to read the whole thing.
There is no visible foe, but the unseen is round us. Forces intangible besiege, touches from alien realms, thoughts not our own overtake us and compel the erring heart. Our lives are caught in an ambiguous net.
And now we're hearing daily about these extraterrestrials on Earth. They can be bad. They may be good. We don't know. We're not certain yet. So we see that there's no visible foe, but the unseen is round us, and these intangible forces besiege us. So intangible, of course, incapable of being perceived. And to besiege is really to crowd around us, to crowd in upon us. So they're besieging us. And even these touches from alien realms. And that's what we're seeing about now. We don't know about AI yet. I'm studying it virtually every day. I'm looking at ChatGPT. I'm asking it to give me reviews on some of my poetry, and it's absolutely brilliant, I must say. But these thoughts that are not our own, and we know as long as we're in this lower hemisphere of body, life, and mind, that no thought is our own. Every thought is coming from the universal plane of thought and entering whoever it can enter. So even the genius receives his thoughts from the universe. They're not his thoughts. Until one rises into the higher mind, illumined and intuitive and overmind. So these thoughts overtake us, and they even compel the erring heart. And therefore, after that semicolon, he finishes with, our lives are caught in an ambiguous net. Well, if it's ambiguous, we really don't know what it is. It has several possible meanings very clearly. It could even be sometimes of oracles where they have double meanings. So it's an ambiguous net. Okay, if you'll read, then I have to go to my next student. Your reading is very good, by the way.
Thank you. The immortal bound to earth's mortality, appearing and perishing on the roads of time, creates God's moment by eternity's beat. He dies that the world may be newborn and live. Even if he escapes the fiercest fires, even if the world breaks not in a drowning sea, only by hard sacrifice is high heaven earned. He must face the fight, the pang who would conquer hell. A dark, concealed hostility is lodged in the human depth, in the hidden heart of time that claims the right to change and mar God's work. A secret enmity ambushes the world's march. It leaves a mark on thought and speech and act. It stamps stain and defect on all things done. Till it is slain, peace is forbidden on earth. There is no visible foe, but the unseen is round us. Forces intangible besiege, touches from alien realms, thoughts not our own, overtake us and compel the erring heart. Our lives are caught in an ambiguous net.
You've improved a lot in your reading, and what I'm seeing very palpably is that you're not dropping your voice at the end of a
No,
line.
okay,
Very,
I'm glad to hear that because I've been conscious of not doing that.
very good. Thank you.
Thank
Now,
you. Thank you. Thank you.